Okay, guys, well done. You left it late against Chelsea, but another Champions League final, an 8th in a row, which is just unheard of. So I'm cooking a dinner here tonight at my new house here in Husavik. It looks even better in person than it did on Grand Designs Iceland, I swear. But the reason that you are here is so I can tell you in person that this game in this Champions League final is going to be your last one for me as a manager, because I am resigning off the back of this Champions League final. It's been 20 years in charge here. A lot of you guys were nowhere near the club when I started back in the 3rd division of Iceland. We have come a long way, but it is time for me to step aside, and it's a good chance to do so, trying to win a 5th Champions League title against RB Leipzig. So when we get to Paris, I want us to give it everything we have and make sure that we go out with a frickin' bang, okay? 3 times in a row, 5 times overall. Let's win this Champions League and have a piss up to end all booze ups off the back of this final, guys. Let's go. Hello everyone and welcome back to Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up in today's episode, it is the last one of the series and it is the 2040 Champions League final as we do take on RB Leipzig. Before then, as per usual, we will also do our end of European season roundup as well. So if you are looking forward to this final episode of the series, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, or have enjoyed the series on the channel, I should say, then do remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated and keeps you guys in the loop for when the FM23 content does start to drop, starting off with a beta save with Liverpool. But today we are taking part in the Champions League final for 2040. If you did miss how we got here in yesterday's episode, a real dramatic episode, that one in the semi-finals against Chelsea, I'll leave a link to that one over in the top right corner. But today we do take on RB Leipzig in this final Champions League final. But before then, just a few little things that we do need to cover off. We've played a few competitive games since you were last here, albeit not too much interest in these, but we came through 3 games to start off the league season with wins, and more importantly, with no injuries to our first team players as well. So that is a good sign going into this Champions League final. It does mean we can put out our best available 11 as well as the bench. And also, the first team does come into this Champions League final with quite a nice match load as well. Most of our first choice players on a light, and most of the bench players around about the medium mark, a few on a heavy, but we should be in good condition going into this year's Champions League final. But before then, we are going to do our final end of season review for Europe of this save. We're going to start off having a look at the winners of the bottom 2 UEFA competitions. We start off with the Conference League, which of course we kept a big eye on up until yesterday, of course, when Newcastle did beat Philcare in the semi-finals, and in the end, Newcastle are the winners of the Conference Leagues. Not too much shame there for Philcare in losing out to the eventual winners. They defeat Lille on penalties after a 1-1 draw in the final, and then going up to the Europa League, which we didn't really pay too much attention to this season, with our teams being knocked out of that competition after the group stages. In the end, the final was between Leicester City and Hellas Verona, and Leicester City did pick up a 3-1 wins. The bottom 2 competitions in UEFA this season were won by English teams. That is, of course, not going to be the case in this Champions League final, as we take on RB Leipzig and look to pick up our 5th Champions League title of the save, and our 3rd one in a row to end things here as manager of Völsungur. But before we do have a look at our opposition for today's Champions League final, a quick look at how things did end in the top 5 leagues around Europe for this final season. Starting off with Ligue 1, currently Brest and Angers are in a playoff at the moment. Brest are ahead on that one, but in terms of the last winners of Ligue 1 in the saver is Paris Saint-Germain. They bounced back from that somewhat shock last season, losing out to Grenoble, and win the title by 21 points. Châteauroux Montpellier in the Champions League next season, Lille and Grenoble in the Europa League, and Nantes will be in the Conference League. The relegated teams at the moment, Saint Etienne and Sochaux Montpellier, will come back to the Bundesliga off the back of the other leagues, of course, because our opposition in this Champions League final are from the Bundesliga. So next up, we do have Serie A and AC Milan are the champions here in 2039/40, just 1 point ahead of Inter Milan and Napoli, and Sud-Tirol will make their way into the Champions League next season. Juventus ending up in 5th spot and in the Europa League, which is a little bit of a surprise. Fiorentina also in the Europa League, and Crotone will be in the Conference League. Atalanta, Pescara and Genoa are getting relegated, so a bit of a surprise there with Atalanta making their way down to Serie B. Next up, we do go to La Liga, where Real Sociedad for the first time in the save and for the first time in nearly 60 years as a club do pick up the Liga, and quite comprehensively as well, by 8 points over Real Madrid and Barcelona in 3rd spot. Then a big gap back to Athletic Club Bilbao, who do finish in 4th spot and will be in the Champions League next season. Valencia and Alaves in the Europa League, and Sevilla in the Conference League. It is Alcacon, Tenerife and Real Betis who will drop down to La Liga 1, 2, 3 and up to the Premier League. We knew this, of course, yesterday and the episode before that with our last few opposition in the Champions League knockouts. Chelsea romped away with the Premier League, and in the end, an invincible season, 35 wins and 3 draws there for Pep Guardiola's men. They end up with 108 points and beat Manchester United to the title by 18 points, a further 13 points back to both Manchester City and Tottenham, who will be in the Champions League next season. Arsenal, Liverpool, and of course Newcastle, through their win in the Conference League final, are going to be in the Europa League next season, and Leicester City will also be in the Champions League off the back of their win in the Europa League, even though they only finished in 9th spot. In the Premier League, Hull City, Everton and Reading are the teams getting relegated down to the Championship, and now it is time, of course, for the Bundesliga, where we are going to find today's opposition in RB Leipzig. This is a pretty big game for those guys, because currently they have not qualified for Europe next season. They finished just outside the spots in 8th position, and at the moment it is Stuttgart, who do look like they might be winning that playoff over 1860 Munich. The teams who are getting relegated are Hoffenheim and Hamburg. Hertha Berlin, though, for the 4th season in a row, are the champions of the Bundesliga, 6 points clear of Bayern Munich, with Dortmund and Bayer Leverkusen also in the Champions League next season. Cologne and Augsburg in the Europa League, and Union Berlin will be in the Conference League next season, albeit that could potentially change, of course, if RB Leipzig do defeat us in this upcoming Champions League final. But we are taking on a team who did only manage to finish 8th in the Bundesliga this past season. So based on that, and the fact that we have no injuries going into this Champions League final, I would like to think that we are quite strong favourites for this one. On paper, it does look like we have faced stronger teams on our road to the final this season, especially in the knockouts. 4.5-star Reputation Club looks like lately they have been playing a 4-3-3, albeit when we checked in on this yesterday, they did have 5 at the back, which we sometimes do struggle against. But this should be a team, I think, who we are capable of beating. A few decent players in that team. Peter Wojnar is a decent player, as are some of their defenders, Reichel and Kolic in particular, as well as Tom Sark, so it looks like on this occasion did play as a defensive midfielder. There's a few good players in that RB Leipzig team, albeit as an overall squad, I do think we should have the edge here with our current crop at Völsungur. And of course, they have picked up a couple of Europa League titles in the save back in 2030, 2036, and of course last year, as we did defeat them earlier this season in the Super Cup. And if we go over to the past meetings, you will see for the most part, our record against RB Leipzig has been quite good. We did lose to them all the way back in 2030 in the group stages of the Champions League, and of course in the Super Cup back in 2036. But in the 4 other games, we have picked up solid wins, never by big margins, but getting the job done by just enough. So hopefully we can do something similar today in this Champions League final. But I think that's everything we do need to cover off prior to this final game of the save, which we are going to manage. Of course, we are going to come back next week and do a looking forward video. I think I'm going to try and get up to around about 2,100 in terms of years and see how Völsungur and Iceland are tracking at that stage. But it is time for this final Champions League final from the Stade de France. We'll come back shortly and try and make it 5 titles as we take on RB Leipzig in this 2040 final. And here are the team sheets for this final game in charge at Völsungur. As mentioned before, we are exactly the same as we were for those 2 games against Chelsea in yesterday's episode, our best 11, which we have had for most of this Champions League season. And as you can see, Leipzig going back to their 5 at the back with 2 midfielders and 3 attackers. So it could be interesting to see how we do go here against these 5 at the back, but hopefully we can make it 5 Champions Leagues for the save. And up to the 12-minute mark, we have our first highlight of this final. At the moment, RB Leipzig, it is fair to say, have had the better of things early. We did get the ball back there briefly through Jonathan Berger, but Leipzig back on the attack. Good chance there for Vargas. Did try and chip Calvolin, but in the end, it was not performed very well. And after a decent spell of early dominance in Leipzig's favour, the scoreline is still 0-0. And that is half-time in this season's Champions League final so far. It has been an absolutely woeful game, just 3 shots from both teams. At least Leipzig's have been on target. We are yet to hit the target, even though our XG is actually a little bit higher. We've also picked up a yellow card in that first half to Lapasay, but so far, not a very inspiring game. I think at halftime, what we might do is what we've done over the past few episodes and put our wing backs on attack and try and get something going forward here in this second half. But in the end, we'll tell the boys we need to be a bit better in the second half. We certainly could be in a much worse position off the back of a 45 minutes like that. We start off the second half, still locked up at 0-0. And only a few minutes into the second half, we have our first highlight here as Leipzig roll this out from their goalkeeper and get a chance here to play out from the back. Some quite strong defenders, but that's a poor ball over the top there from Sarks, and it might give us a chance here to do something inside the final third. Some good short passing. Lapasay tries to slot away Lassana Doumbia. That is the start to the second half. We want one of the players, if not the player of the save, and Lassana Doumbia tucks that array in the bottom right corner, and we grab a 1-0 lead here nice and early in the second half. Some good short passing, and Doumbia a bit unmarked there off the back of that ball from Lapasay, tucks it away nicely in the bottom right corner, and just like that, we grab a 1-0 lead. And up to the hour mark, we are going to make a few changes at this time, not too long off the back of that opening goal. Surprisingly, quite a few of our players are dropping down in terms of their heart condition, which is a little bit concerning at only the hour mark, but Bruno Costa will come on for the goal scorer in Lassana Doumbia also. I think we'll play things safe and bring on Christopher Allegard for Lapasay on a yellow card. 2 of our 3 subs used and still 1-0 up with a half hour left in this year's final. And we've just entered the last 20 minutes of this year's Champions League final. Still a very ugly, boring game, but unfortunately one of our substitutes has picked up an orange injury, potential foot injury here for Christopher Allegard down to a deep red heart. So I think it's safe here to take him off. We will bring on Oripor Halson, the backup striker who can also cover left wing, and hopefully he can help us here grab a cushion goal. But this has been a very ugly game, but still we are 1-0 up with just under 20 minutes left. And with around about 6 minutes left in this season's Champions League final, it does look like a free kick here is about to happen in favour of RB Leipzig. Did just consider telling Elaine Basicki to ease off tackles, having just picked up a yellow card, but I don't think we would have stopped this highlight anyway. But somehow Michael Douglas is free there inside the box. His header comes off the underside of the crossbar. Then it looks like off the back of Calvolin trying to make a diving save. Somehow he is unmarked there, and unfortunately, with about 6 minutes left in this Champions League final in regular time, RB Leipzig might be looking to spoil the party. As you can see, Volin does actually get a hand on that, but unfortunately can't quite keep it out of the back of the net. Now we'll tell Basicki to ease off tackles, and with about 6 minutes left, we are now locked up at 1-1. Tell the boys to stop focusing through the middle. We'll also go a bit wider in our attack, do some mixed crosses, we'll distribute quickly, and also counter press instead of regrouping. As well as that, Bruno Costa can go onto a centre mid on attack, and hopefully let's get something going here inside these last few minutes. As you can tell by the stats, this has been a very, very dull game, and now it's RB Leipzig with a corner here late in regular time, but we head that away through Basaro Gay, and Adam Saki might get a chance here to get something happening here late in this game. Can he slot through that player who is further forward, plays it back for Bruno Costa, but he can't link up with Saki, and the goalkeeper clears it away quite nicely for Saks there for Leipzig. So again, this could be a chance here for our German opposition, who it does look like are coming home with a wet sail, just knocking it about in the midfield for now, albeit they try and play a ball over the top, which Filippo Dinelli does deal with, and now Bruno Costa will find Oripor Halson out at left wing. He switches this back into the midfield, thankfully. Basicki finds Berger, good chance there for Bruno Costa, but in the end it's actually a really good tip over there from the Leipzig goalkeeper. Actually thought that shot must have gone over the bar, so a good save there from the Leipzig keeper. Bruno Costa takes his time over the set piece, and Sachs We'll clear that one out for yet another corner. There is 4 minutes here of added time. Can we grab a late goal to make sure that we do win our third straight Champions League final? Bruno Costa, though, that is a poor ball into the mixer, and that might just about do it here. Late in this one, we will go attacking for the last few minutes, and we do have another highlight here, a free kick to RB Leipzig. Siani gets his head on the end of that. Thankfully, it just loops over the crossbar, and there is one more highlight here late in this game, albeit at this stage, I am wondering if they're just trying to make things a little bit tense, if these highlights are not going to amount to much, albeit we did find out yesterday that might not be the case. Adam Saki nearly gets in behind there, but Bayer, nice 1-2 for Saki. And this time, that's a great chance on the volley, but blast that over the bar. And now with just under 30 seconds left, it does look like this Champions League final might be going to extra time. RB Leipzig certainly taking their time here on the ball. It does look like they are quite happy for this game to go to a few extra minutes. In fact, half an hour of extra time, and we are nearly up now to full time of regular time as we do get the ball back. Paul Howson does get robbed there, but that is full time in this season's Champions League final, and it is going to extra time. We're in front for most of the second half, but they did grab a goal back there in the 85th minute. So in the end, that's probably a fair scoreline after 90 minutes, and we might actually make another substitution at this time. A lot of players now down to deep red hearts, but Agustin Agatire only on a 6.3. We will bring on Maurizio Menga for him. That will be our substitution for extra time. We'll give the boys yet again a bit of a rev up, and hopefully we can grab a goal here in extra time before this Champions League final does go to penalties. We will kick off extra time locked up at 1-1. And at half-time and extra time, absolutely no highlights so far in the first half of that. Still pretty even stats. We kick off the second half of extra time, still at 1-1, and looking like this might go to penalties. And very late in extra time here, it does look like this Champions League final is going to go to penalties. We changed a few things tactically there throughout extra time, but our final game of this save is going to be a Champions League final that does go to penalties. So we'll just sort out our penalty order here, and we'll come back shortly and get stuck into this penalty shootout as we look to make it 3 straight Champions League titles from the spot against Leipzig. And this is the order that we have decided for the penalty shootout. It sort of follows the form you can see there over on the right-hand side based on penalty taking ability, but we have just bumped down Elaine Basicki a little bit because he is not as good at finishing as some of those players below him, like Benvenu Bayer, Maurizio Menga, Ori Paul Howson, or Bruno Costa. So it kind of makes sense starting off with our more attacking players and then working our way a little bit more towards the backfield. So hopefully we can get the job done here from the penalty spot. Our penalty spot form in previous Champions League finals has been a little bit hit and miss. We've lost one to Manchester United, won one over Manchester United, and then a few seasons ago, lost one to Real Madrid. So hopefully we are due to win another penalty shootout here. It looks like most of the players are pretty confident going into this penalty shootout. Just a little bit of a pep talk there for Adam Saki. And first off, it will be RB Leipzig here from the spot. We will just change the camera angle and make sure that this is nice and clear for this final bit of gameplay for this save. We'll just make sure that we do actually get this to a nice angle. I think maybe behind goal is going to be the best one, and definitely not reverse, but we'll use that angle here for this penalty shootout. And first up, it is Michael Douglas for RB Leipzig, and big Carl Villen guesses the right way and gets his big body in the way. That is a great start if Adam Saki can tuck this one away. The Moroccan striker who does put that away on the left-hand side as we can see it into that top corner. And we take a nice early 1-0 lead in this Champions League penalty shootout. Next up is Bergstrom for RB Leipzig. Vollen does go the right way, but that is a good penalty, and that makes it 1-1. But we certainly still have the advantage as long as Benvenu Bayer can tuck this away. He takes a short run up and does also, with the goalkeeper, goes the right way, but that is a good penalty from Benvenu Bayer, and we still have our lead here by 1 goal. Next up for Leipzig is Jungwirth. He will go to the left-hand side, and yet again, Carl Villen comes up with a save, and this is a big moment here. We could potentially get on the doorstep of winning our 3rd straight Champions League title if Maurizio Menga can put this one away. He did come off the bench. He goes down the middle. Little bit of a wobble there from the goalkeeper, and in the end he holds his line, and we still have a lead, albeit could have been by a bit more. Next up for Leipzig is Kolic, a defender, and again Wallen does go the right way, but the shot is powerful enough to get past him. It is 2-2. Ori Porhelson here to try and get us back on track, and that's a really good penalty, that one, into that top left corner from the way that we are looking at it. And now Leipzig do need to score this one, otherwise we will win this Champions League final. It's one of their defenders, Reichel, who steps up here with quite a bit of pressure. They're 2 from 4 so far in this penalty shootout. What can Reichel do here? Can he keep this penalty shootout alive? We will see. Here he goes in that bottom right corner, Calvin, and it looked like actually got a hand on that one, but it can't quite keep it out. And that does mean that last up for us is the current Ballon d'Or holder in Bruno Costa. If we can put this one away, we are going to win our 5th Champions League title of the save. And what a way to end things that would be. It looks like it's going to be a bit of a short run-up. Bruno Costa, he gets that past the goalkeeper. Horrific Champions League final in terms of quality, but we get the job done from the penalty spot thanks to our Ballon d'Or winner in Bruno Costa. And we are Champions League winners yet again for the 5th time in this save and the 3rd time in a row. 5 wins in the last 6 years, and we have also made the last 8 Champions League finals. So it's certainly been a Völsungur era over the later stages of this save. As I mentioned, an absolutely terrible game in terms of quality, probably because Leipzig play 5 at the back. We do struggle against that sometimes, and it did look like that was the case today. But thankfully, off the back of a late equaliser, that Leipzig did score that game, did go to penalties, and we just did enough there to get the job done, largely thanks to Carl Villen in goal, pulling off a couple of really, really good saves. We just about edged things in terms of the stats after extra time as well. So I think in the end, we probably just deserved that. But as I said, very, very ugly game for the last one of the save. But we get the job done from the penalty spot, and we win the Champions League final of 2040 off the back of a 1-1 draw and a win on penalties over RB Leipzig. And back in the inbox off the back of that final game of the save, as I said, it was a pretty ugly one, truth be told, but thankfully we got the job done in that penalty shootout. 2 saves from Carl Villen, and also just that 1 missed penalty for us from Maurizio Menga. We have already picked up a treble for the season. Christopher Allegard did get somewhat injured in that final, but just a bruised ankle. Probably could have played through that, but I think in the end, not the worst decision, especially with Ori Porhelson putting away his penalty in that shootout. We get 17.1 million there for winning that final. If we go up a bit further, 30.42 million from our coefficient pool money as well. So quite a nice payday for us there of around about £50 million in terms of the medals for this final Champions League season. The player with the highest rating, and in the end, by far the best looking stats, I think it's fair to say, for this past Champions League season was one of Ives Lapase. 2 really good campaigns in the Champions League since we did sign him to replace Ognjan Mizkic. 13 appearances, 10 goals and 4 assists, and behind that, Lassana Doumbia did have the next best rating, but with only 2 goals and 2 assists from 10 appearances in this season's Champions League. So certainly I think it's fair to say that Champions League win was largely at the hands of one of Ives Lapase with that big output that he had. In those 13 games, we make it 5 times in 8 years, and in fact 5 times in 6 years in terms of Champions League wins. Everyone very happy with us, and you go and have a look at the Champions League review. In the end, RB Leipzig, the overachievers, which I think it's fair to say off the back of only finishing 8th in the Bundesliga, but a bit harshly, that does mean they miss out on European football next season, and we are going to end our time here at Völsungur off the back of 3 straight Champions League wins. And going forward, a few clicks off the back of those post-match articles. We have a few more now in terms of the award winners for this past Champions League season. One of Ives Lapase misses out by a technicality there on the Champions League Golden Boot. Frank from Manchester City did win that because he made less appearances, with Manchester City being knocked out a little bit earlier. In the knockouts, the best goal, one of Ives Lapase, also ends up runner-up in this for that good free kick that he scored against Xavier's back in the group stages last week. We make our way up a bit further to the dream team, largely full of Völsungur players. We have Volin, a back four of Berger, Guy, Denelli, and Radenko Krolo, the midfield made up of Lapase, Costa, and Doumbia, and up front, Adam Saki is alongside Frank with Sione from RB Leipzig at right midfielder, the other player not from our team. So 9 Völsungur players in that Champions League dream team as we pick it up for the 5th time in this save. And in terms of the actual award winners for position, Carl Vollen ranked second in terms of goalkeeper of the season. In terms of defenders, Radenko Krolo did win that award, with Filippo Dinelli the runner-up. And in terms of midfielders, it is a complete Völsungur clean sweep. One Abes Lapase, as you would expect off the back of those good stats from this past season, was the midfielder of the season. Lasana Doumbia runner-up, and Elaine Basicki finishes in third position, but that will almost do it for this save here on the channel. It has been a massive one. In fact, before we do finally end things for Husavik Heroes in terms of our time in charge, just one final thing we do want to have a look at before we do sim forward in that video coming up at some stage next week, by the time my computer actually gets that far in the save universe, and having a look at the coefficient. We did outdo Portugal this past season. We picked up a 13.2, so that does mean we closed the gap quite nicely on them, but we are still just over 2 coefficient points behind them, albeit over the next few seasons, Portugal get rid of some much better years than we do. So hopefully the new manager here at Völsungur can do a decent job, and we can potentially jump above Portugal in a few years' time, or maybe even sooner in this save universe. But that will do it for Husavik Heroes. Just one last thing to do. We are going to resign from the club. Before we do that, though, we'll go back to the tactics screen and just have a look at this final squad, which did win us a Champions League. What a group of players it was towards the end of this save. And they have done a brilliant job making the last 8 Champions League finals, most of them here for quite a bit of that as well. And of course, winning 5 of those Champions League titles over the past 6 seasons. But that will do it for Husavik Heroes. As I said, we're going to come back next week for a looking forward video. As I said, I'm planning to go all the way forward to 2100 and see what does happen in this save universe. But it has been an absolute pleasure. Really love doing the save here on the channel over this whole year. It's been about 11 months of my life, this save. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed it, and thank you very much for sticking with it. I know it's been a big series, 222 episodes, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed it, and you'll be back for what we are doing on FM23. We did drop a video last weekend with our plans for that one, so I'll leave a link to that one over in the top right corner. But for the final time in Husavik Heroes, thank you very much for watching, and until the next time I see you, keep on keeping on, and I will see you then. Cheers.